In this video, I'll be showing you everything that you need to know to start playing chord progressions right away. We're gonna be going over the pop progression, slash chords, primary chords, and even how to play in different keys with the same chord progression. Let's get into it. So the first thing we need to learn is how to create chord progressions. And the secret is something called your diatonic chords. Those are chords that are built within a key. So in the key of C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. So let me explain what those mean. This 1 is actually a capital because it's a major chord. So it means the 1 is always going to be major. 2, this one's actually lowercase because lowercase means minor, uppercase means major. 3, you guessed it, it's going to be minor. 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, and this 7th one is going to be diminished. And our last one is major again. So if you start to combine these, C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, C, you can put those in any order. And here's C, 1, go into the 4. Let's go to the 3. Let's go to the 5 now. And I can even go to the 6. And then when I feel like I want to resolve, I just finish on the 1. And if you do this on any key, just take your major scale and add that diatonic chord formula to it, and you're gonna find out what chords belong in what keys. Okay, so now that you know what chords sound good together, what happens if you start to add a melody in like You might know that melody, but what if we wanted to add our own chords to that melody? What would the chords be? Well, that's when primary chords come into play because C, F, and G are the most important chords in any key. The reason this is because you can harmonize any note with just those 3 chords. C chord, F chord, and G chord. If I was to press every single one of those notes at the same time, I would have every single note in my C major scale. Because if I have a C note in my melody, I can either press a C chord or I can press an F chord. What about my D note? Well, I can play my G chord here. Well, what about E? I can play C. What about F? I can play my F chord. For G, I can play my G chord, or I can play C. So I can harmonize different chords with the same note. And so you kind of see, no matter what note you're playing in your major scale, as long as you play your C, your F, or your G, you can harmonize any single melody. So primary chords are great, but it sounds a little too happy. So what if we start to add a little bit more color in? Well, that's when we end up getting our pop progression. The 1, 5, 6, 4, arguably the most popular progression in the world. You probably heard it for songs like, and depending on what key you're in, it could be you might recognize a couple of those tunes. Well, they're using the 1, 5, 6, 4 progression. So we're taking our 1 chord, which is our C chord. G is our 5, and we're adding this minor chord in here. And this is really what gives it all the color because the minor chord adds a little bit of tension, but just enough color so that when you resolve, it sounds really nice. You can use this not just in the key of C, in any key. So if I'm in the key of G, let's just take the first 6 notes of the key of G, from G to E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What is the 1, 5, 6, 4 progression here? Well, let's just figure out our notes. 1, 5, 6, 4. And now if we apply those Roman numerals, we have 1, 5, here's the minor chord. And then all of a sudden you can play millions of songs. Especially once you add those inversions in there. So this is a great progression, but what if you switch it up just a little bit? If you start with the minor chord first, then you can create probably the second most popular chord progression of all time, the 6, 4, 1, 5. And it's the same chord, just starting on in a different order. 6, 4, 1, 5. So it sounds like this. And even though it's using the same chords, it does sound a little bit different because you're resolving on this minor chord. So it kind of gives you a more moody sound here. And that is the pop progression. All right, so the next step is using slash chords. So what is a slash chord? You might see something like a C chord on your music, but what if you see C over E? What does that mean? Well, you're just taking your C chord And you can even play it in inversion like this, with the E as the lowest note. You could even see C over G like this. And these are just inversions. Here's C over E, and here's regular C chord. So there's one really popular progression that makes use of these slash chords, where you're just changing that bass note, but it just makes it feel a lot different. You might recognize this already, but this is the Canon chord progression because it's used in so many songs. Really popular, everything from the Piano Man, but it all started with this. So the chord progression starts with our C chord. But then, instead of going to our 5 chord, we're gonna play G over B. And see how that sounds? We have like a B, or B, D, and G. So this is my G first inversion chord. Then I go to A minor. But then instead of going to E minor down here, we have E minor over G. So the third note of the chord is in the bass. Then we have our F chord. And then we do the same thing again here, C over E. And see how it kind of sounds like it really wants to go back up to F here because it's just a semitone apart. We have F in root position, our G, and you can take this technique and apply it to any chord progression like the 1, 5, 6, 4. C, G over B, A minor, and you can even do like F over A, or C over G, then G, A minor over E, and then F. You can kind of experiment with these and have fun with them, but that is how slash chords can add another layer to your playing. This is probably the coolest part about chord progression. Let's say you've learned all your C major chords, but you're like, you know, I want new sounds, I want more color. Well, all you have to do is take chords from the parallel minor, and that is, instead of playing C major, now you're gonna play C minor, but stay on the same root. So now this opens up different chord possibilities. C minor, D diminished, E flat, F minor, G minor, A flat, B flat, and C minor. These are the diatonic chords, but of a minor key. So if I take my C major chords and my chords from C minor, and I start to mix and match them, take a listen to what this can sound like. So let's start in the key of C. We have our C chord, and let's go to our 6th chord, A minor. But now let's take a chord from the key of C minor. Let's go to A flat. Whoa, it completely changes the way it feels. Then go to E flat, and maybe F major, maybe F minor, and then go to C. So the trick to doing this is making sure you stay in the same root. So if you're using chords from the key of C major, you can also use chords from the key of C minor. And if you're having trouble figuring out, okay, but those diatonic chords in minor, they're a little bit tricky to me still. Well, you can think about it as C minor is also the same thing as E flat major. They're called relative majors and relative minors. So in E flat, you can just follow your same formula. 1 is major, 2 is minor, 3 is minor, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, 7 is diminished, and you're back. So you can think about it as the key of E flat and the key of C. Or, if you want to try with the parallel minor, the key of C minor and the key of C. And again, if I take this and I start to add, you know, all these different chords, I can go to A flat here. Maybe I can go from A flat to B flat. And then I end on C major. All right, so there it is. Everything that you need to know about chord progressions. So comment down below, let me know what your favorite chord progression is, and we'll see you next time.